This is a major turning point for the Boston Bruins as the training camp rosters have been announced, and we now get a very good idea as to what the plan is going forward for the Boston Bruins with the new additions to this team, as well as former players and current players who are trying to once again push for another roster spot. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the training camp roster as well as what the likely moves are to be made and players to keep an eye on. Before we do jump into this video, though, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We're on the road to 8K, and your support's been absolutely fantastic. I appreciate all of you guys, and with the season right around the corner, I'm going to be keeping you up to date with everything here on the channel, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts for On the Road as well. So be sure to go hit the sub button and follow all of the channels on podcasting as well. But let's get straight into this, because obviously heading into this season, the Bruins have a lot to think about. A lot of question marks surrounding not just the forwards, defense, not even just the goalies, but this entire roster. After a very lackluster season, training camp is going to be one of the most, if not the most important part of this season heading into it. And I'm going to break it down section by section. So first of all, I want to touch on the forwards, because obviously I think this is where most of the change is going to come. And looking at the training camp roster from this part, at least right now, from the offense, I have some players highlighted. Now, in green, players that are currently and have been on the roster of the Boston Bruins previously. This also counts for the Providence Bruins as well. Fabian Lysell and Georgi Merkulov. I feel like this is one of, if not the last opportunity for both of these players here to make a starting lineup. Now, going into the season, of course, the Bruins went out and signed a lot of secondary players, a lot of bottom six players, and I feel like by just taking a look here at the lines up that we have, the offensive set of players that we have currently listed here, they're not really favored to be here in a lineup out of training camp. Now, with going and signing a lot of these veteran players, and, veterans including Tanner Jeannot, Mikey Eyssimont, Sean Kuraly, players that we have been speaking about for, months at this point now. These players are going to be here to give a challenge to a lot of other players, and I think that realistically, they're all going to make the lineup as well, which is definitely not ideal for players like these ones I have highlighted here in Fabian Lysell and Georgi Merkulov in specific, due to what they've been going through the past few years with the Boston Bruins. Fabian Lysell spoken out about his role and what he's been working on, but it really feels like a broken record. We really haven't heard much from Georgi Merkulov, who did re-sign in this offseason to stay with the team once again. But going into this year, if the Bruins do not find a spot for them, it is likely going to be the last time they are going to be with the Boston Bruins regarding, trying to make this NHL roster, and the Bruins could certainly go ahead and use a trade here. Now, going into our yellow highlighted players, I have Matej Blum as really the number one here, but Fraser Minten is a player that I think will likely make the team out of training camp. He's someone that, with the Toronto Maple Leafs, had that success already. We got him in a steal of a deal along with a first-round pick for getting rid of Brandon Carlo to the Maple Leafs, and Fraser Minten is just an absolute animal when it comes to his play with and around the puck, and I think that he's going to be a very good fit for this Bruins team. Now, whether or not it is out of camp, I think still will be determined during camp, but he will be with this team very early on here in this season. And one that I have kind of an underrated is Stanislav Millis. Of course, we've spoken about him the last little while, from Latvia, a player that has been really surprising everybody, and someone that is due for an absolute fantastic tenure here with this Boston Bruins team. But will it be the start of camp, or will it be midway through the season, or even on a call-up here? I think going into now his first full professional season, sometime in Providence to start off will be the best decision. However, don't be surprised if out of training camp he comes in here and shocks everybody and earns that spot on this roster heading in to the regular season. Due to just about everybody on this lineup, I feel like not really having a safe spot here where they currently are listed. And once again, I'll pull up the lines here just to kind of get a reminder that a lot of the team now that is on the bottom six is pretty much the veteran players apart from Matt Poitras and John Beecher. I'd really consider Mark Kaslik a veteran at this point, even though he's only been on Boston for one season. He's been a player that's been around the NHL for a while, and John Beecher is really kind of teetering out of that category as well. So the offense is looking very interesting on that front, and I think we're going to see some very interesting players. But before we do move on, Matej Blum, the guy that we haven't spoken about yet, is someone that, as I'm sure you guys remember, or may have forgotten actually with how long ago it's been, was signed by this Boston Bruins team as a player that comes from the Dallas Stars, Texas Stars mainly. His last season, he put up an absolutely astronomical season last year in the AHL. 72 points in 67 games, and even the season before, 62 points in 72 games. I think that he is an absolute, very, very interesting option, and someone that could really make a major difference at the NHL level if he can get this translated. And only with 13 games under his belt, I think there's a lot of question marks surrounding him at what he can do at the pro level. So this is someone I just want to keep in mind. And also thinking about this, the Czech Republic, very well known with David Pastrnak and how things can go from there. So we're going to have to keep that in mind as well in going forward with all of these kind of things on offense. But once again, this is only training camp. We have a lot of decisions to make, so do the Bruins. So with the defense as well coming into this season, there are a few interesting players here. Once again, some that we have listed: Jordan Harris, Victor Soderstrom, 2 new acquisitions, and Loke Johansson. Now, there's really only 3 here, and I have these ones listed. That's because the defense is pretty much set. We pretty much have our 6 defense, and realistically, I think these are the players that are fighting for a 7th or 8th spot, with Loke Johansson really being kind of the underdog here in this. They signed Victor Soderstrom. They went out and signed Jordan Harris. 2 players who are going to be likely the 7th and 8th options, of course, a left shot and right shot there. So having that extra defenseman for each side will be a smart move, but they're players as well who've had NHL experience. Let him, albeit very little of it, Jordan Harris more so than Victor Soderstrom, but 2 still young players with great potential here and just great options to be there as a extra defenseman on each side. So I don't think we're going to see anybody surprisingly make this roster, and especially the starting lineup here out of this, but these are players just to keep in mind and especially going into where we currently stand on this side of things with Lindholm, McAvoy, Zadorov, Jokiharju, and Lohrei Peak really being the main set. The only one, and I still think this is an absolute kind of insane take here, that would not make this roster would be Andrew Peak, but, he's been so solid over the past couple of seasons, especially when we saw him last year play sometimes on the first line, a lot on the second, with McAvoy being injured and Jokiharju coming in halfway through the season at the trade deadline, and him and Carlo were really holding it down on that right side. So Andrew Peak, I still think he's going to make this team, no doubt, but really, you never know, especially at a training camp. But finishing this off now is especially the most interesting part of this, and that's going with the goaltending. Now, the goaltending has been something that we've been speaking about here quite a bit, and taking a look at Luke Kavlin, Mike DiPietro, Jonas Korpisalo, Jeremy Swayman, and Simon Zajac, we have all of our signed goaltenders here in training camp. Now, there's really 3 that we could take a look at. 3 that we can really break down as options here for this season, and really 2 that are options for a backup: Jonas Korpisalo and Michael DiPietro. What's going to happen? What's the plan there going on the defense? We have no idea, because when we go and take a look at how these how these players stack up, the big thing to take a look at is the contract. Do you want to pay $4 million for Jonas Korpisalo as a backup goalie, someone who vocalized last year that he didn't want to play, not necessarily didn't want to play with the team, but that he was not happy with the amount of time he had played, yet reports were going out, his agent came out and said, no, he wants to stay here. Jonas Korpisalo, in my mind, still needs to be the goalie that, unfortunately, is kind of the wild card here. The cap space is too big. The money is too much right now to be paying for a backup goalie, especially when you have Swayman being paid $8.25 million and you're just signing Michael DiPietro. If there is a team looking for a goalie, Jonas Korpisalo really seems to be it. And even with reports coming out that they are linked to a very interesting kind of Stuart Skinner trade that we're going to be touching on in a later video, it's just insane that this team is looking for more goalies. I think that right now, one needs to be shipped out, and that one may be Jonas Korpisalo. So let me know what you think about this roster here. First of all, about the training camp one. I'll pull up the full thing once again just so you can take a look through it. Pause, take a look. If you have any kind of questions, put them in the comments below. We have a lot of people that are very well known with this team that could answer a few questions. Or if you have any comments, put it here. Let me know what you think about it as well going into it. No real surprises here on the list, but there are a few players that could really make a big surprise by jumping into this roster over some other players. So let me know what you think about that. That is all I have here in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.